Siva Yoga Swami, since the youngsters here today would not have known Swami. Indeed, a remarkable sage of modern times. On 29th May 1872, his son was born to Amalawana and Sinnachi Amma near the famous Kandasamy temple in Mavatapuram. He was named Sadasiram. His mother having passed away when he was just 10 years old, and his father doing business in the hill country, Swami was brought up by his aunt. He attended a missionary school, but coming from a devout Hindu family of humble circumstances, grew up in a simple and happy Hindu atmosphere. He was very intelligent, studious, and independent. After leaving school, he joined the irrigation department as a storekeeper in the then outback village of Greenwich. Being a very hardworking, conscientious, and honest worker, he would devote all his free time in meditation or in the study of religion and yearning for the realization of God. Every weekend, he would walk all the distance of 40 miles from Kleenachi to Nallur Murugan. In 1905, when Swami was passing Nallur temple, Chillappa Swami, who was later to become Swami's guru, shouted at him, "Who are you?" Chillappa Swami, dressed in rags and begging for food, was to many a mad man. It has been said that the fortunate few with purity of mind and are blessed and recognized his true greatness. Swami realized that here was the Guru he was searching for. He resigned his job and became Chillappa Swami's disciple. It was a life of very strict discipline and extreme austerity. Swami would follow Chillappa Swami wherever he went. In 1909, Chillappa Swami ordered Swami and the other disciples Kadravayu to meditate continuously. Each day, Chillappa Swami would bring them only some water and at times some tea. They were in meditation for 40 days, and on the 40th day, Chillappa Swami brought them some string offers, but threw them in the air, saying that was all he could offer them. 2 elephants cannot be tied to one post, drove them away and asked them to beg for their food. Swami began the life of a wandering ascetic. In the following year, starting from Nallur, Swami went on a solitary padayatra to Kavigamam along the eastern coast through Vetikalo, Tirukovil and the jungles, unmindful of the dangers, often without food or water. On his return, he came along the western coast to Colombo. Swami lived a life of a virtual beggar. Having lost contact, many feared he was no more. Swami continued his padayatra through the hills. Mr. Tillambalam, who would later be one of Swami's staunch disciples, then working in Matala, had a vision. He was told that a great devotee of God, who was on a grueling padayatra, would be coming his way that day, totally exhausted, hungry, and in tattered clothes. He is in no fit condition to go any further on foot. You ought to meet him, look after him, and send him by train to Jaffna. Mr. Tillambalam was overjoyed that he had been given this task. He waited by the roadside and saw Swami coming. Worshipping Swami, he told him of his dream. Swami said, "If that is Murugan's wish, so be it." Swami had a bath, a change of clothing, a most welcome meal, and after some rest, was on his way by train with a ticket bought by Mr. Tillambalam. He offered Swami some money, but Swami would not accept it. Swami visited many temples in India, Sidambaram, Kasi, etc., and also visited Sri Ramana Maharishi. They sat for many hours facing each other in complete silence and apparent meditation. Neither spoke, as we know it. It is said that they had said all that had to be said. Rain or sun, Swami lived in the open under a nilupai tree in Coimbatore. Like his guru, he would chase away those that came to him. Yet the number of devotees continued to grow. Over time, Swami mellowed in his attitude towards them. His disciples begged of him to accept some shelter. Finally, Swami relented and agreed to occupy a small hut with a low thatch roof nearby, offered by devotees Angamma and son Telavas. This was to be the ashram for all time. Many years earlier, Swami Vivekananda passed this way in the procession when he visited Jaffna. As Swami Vivekananda approached the nilupai tree, Yoga Swami was to meditate. Many years later, Swami Vivekananda insisted on getting down from the vehicle and walked past, explaining that this was sacred ground and that he preferred to walk. In a similar manner, Yoga Swami, when passing through Peradeniya before the establishment of the university, pointing to a hill, said Murugan Adagra. The university Murugan temple now stands there. Although most of his teachings and songs were of a Hindu flavor, because most of his followers were Hindus, Swami was beyond all distinctions of religion, caste or creed. If one was a Hindu, he would quote from the Hindu scriptures, to a Christian from the Bible, to a Muslim from the Quran, and to a Buddhist from Buddha's teachings. Every religion being merely a different path to the Supreme. Rishi Tolganaran quotes the former Canadian High Commissioner, Dr. James George, himself a devotee of Swami, saying, "I think of Swami as one of the greatest spiritual pioneers of my lifetime, and in a broader sense, the catalyst for the gradual coming together of Eastern and Western spirituality. Because what he was able to do was not only talk to me about the Gospel according to St. John, and quote, in the beginning was the Word, which is now how the Gospel begins. And of course, as a Christian, that was how I was brought up. But Swami was able to take me from that all the way to the question of, who are you? You think you are the Canadian High Commissioner? Nonsense. That's not who you are, that's what you do. Swami placed great emphasis on one's work and his life. The whole of a man's life had to be a spiritual practice. Whatever one does is as a service to God. A Siva thondu as a Siva thondam. Many would come to Swami deeply troubled with worries of illness, etc., but would remain silent. Swami would yet know. To mention just one instance, a devotee had been advised to undergo a spinal operation considered particularly serious in those times, but he remained silent. Swami looked at him and said, "What do these people know? You go to Colombo and consult orthopedic surgeon Rasanaka." As the devotee got up to leave, Swami hit him hard on his back. In Colombo, on the basis of the X-ray, etc., brought by him, the surgeon confirmed that the operation was necessary. However, on repeating the X-ray in Colombo, there was no tumor. It had disappeared. Swami has been known to appear in faraway places. The devotee, Mr. Ambalawana, living in the Central Hills, was seriously ill and unable to bear the pain, kept shouting, "Swami, Swami." To quieten him, the wife asked him whether by shouting Swami, Swami would come all that way. In a short while, she was told that an old gentleman was at the door. Swami walked in, blessed him, and asked him not to fear. Swami was far away in Jaffna. Another instance was when Mr. Satchidananda went to UK for higher studies, the war broke out, but Swami had told his father not to worry and that he would be safe. One night there was a gas leak and Mr. Satchidananda lost consciousness. He was suddenly woken up by a very loud voice saying, "Thambi, Kannadi out there." Thankfully, he survived. The next morning when his father went to Swami, Swami had said, "I saw your son yesterday." The father didn't understand what Swami had said till he heard from his son. Professor A. Jnanasambandha, a highly respected writer and a much sought after speaker from India, one of Swami's many disciples. He relates his experience in many of his books. He was in Jaffna on invitation and was guest of Mr. and Mrs. Srikant. They decided to go and meditate at Swami's ashram in Coimbatore, even though they knew that Swami would not be there, as he would have gone to Kaladam festivals. Knowing that Swami would not be there, they entered talking and were shocked to find Swami seated there as usual. Then Swami inquired of Mr. Srikant why he had not gone to Kaladam. He broke down and said he was unable to make it this time. Swami consoled him by saying, "Kavla Venda, Namakenda Mailva Hanuma Tirukkuradu, Avanda Namuda Varavandu." 2 days later, the professor took plane to Colombo, where he was met by a group led by Sir Kandya Vaidyanathan. That evening, a film was shown of the festival at Kathikama. Swami was seen in that film. On being asked, the person who had filmed it insisted that Swami was at Kathikama, and it turned out to be the day that the professor had met Swami in Jaffna. Many others also confirmed that Swami had been at Kathikama. On completing his 5 days of lectures, cancelling his return flight to India, he went back to Jaffna and related to Swami that he had seen Swami in a film taken at Kathikama. Swami laughed aloud and told him he was to tell no one. They hence kept all this to themselves till Swami attained Maha Samadhi. Swami did not wish that his sayings be recorded, but thankfully Markable Samy, Chilakamast, Sanda Samy, and Mr. M. Srikanta, 4 of his greatest disciples, had kept notes of whatever they were privileged to hear, and these have been codified as words of our Master. Even a short talk about Swami would not be complete unless there is a discussion of Lachindana, songs and sayings of Swami. Unfortunately, time does not permit it, neither do I have the knowledge or the competence to deal with them in the manner they deserve. One of Yoga Swami's disciples was Honorable James Transpotham, son of Viscount Lord Solberry. Swami asked him, "Is there no God in London?" and sent him back, telling him that his father needs him. He was soon back in Ceylon. He succeeded his father in the House of Lords when Viscount Lord Solberry had wished to renounce his title. But Swami asked him to retain it, although he never used that title. In time, Swami had anointed him with the name Sanda Samy. Sanda Samy established the Sivadhandan Nilayam in Chengalari, driving the tractor himself, teaching the youth farming and feeding the people on a regular basis. With the commencement of hostilities, the people requested him to return to the UK for his own safety. An Oxford scholar, he translated the Nachindana into English with the title Songs and Sayings of Yoga Swami and published several other books. Another disciple was Subramanya Swami. After traveling all over India, he came to Ceylon in 1947 as a young man of 20. He said that he had a vision of Yoga Swami when he went to the Nallur Kandasamy temple on his way to the first meeting with Swami. In due course, Yoga Swami ordained him and sent him off, telling him to roar like a lion and spread the message. He established the first Hindu temple in North America and founded the Adinam, a spiritual sanctuary of 363 acres, also known as Kauai's Hindu monastery on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. Today, there are many disciples from several countries at the Adinam. Subramanya Swami to Saiva Samyan to the west. The Guru Chronicle refers to Yoga Swami as the enlightened sage and preceptor of the line of masters known as the Kailasa Parampara, a lineage which goes back 2,200 years and beyond to Maharishi Nandinatha and his 8 disciples, including Patanjali and Thiruvar. Swami would foresee the future. When I was a young student, Swami, while going along the streets of Jaffna, was heard to shout, "Chingalavan Adikapodavan." Thankfully, he also said, "Yalpanam Taramatamahi Pindalambo." In Swami Ganchindana too, he has said, "Panjambalai Vandalum, Varallam Vendalam, Anjuvamo Nangaladi Liya, Arambhan Tanjamali." Who would have thought at that time that there would ever be Panjam or Padai in Jaffna? Swami's teachings have been summed up in 4 great truths. Uru Pollapamillai, Nam Ariyo, Rupovo Mudindagaryam, Muludum Unmai. Siva Yoga Swami attained Maha Samadhi on 24th March 1964. Thank you.